This is Travis Wayne Goodsell. This video is about talking to irrational people, specifically religious fanatic nutcases. In regular society or in politics, you have people that have weird views on things, and this is because they are a part of a tribal party. You know, they're Democrat or Republican or whatever is in their particular nation. And so it's all based on tribalism, in that if the other party has won the Democratic vote, the other party is in an outrage, and anything that the other party does while in office, they oppose and reject and protest and riot and whatever, and it goes back and forth that way. And so, as you are aware, the things that are difficult to discuss are politics and religion, and it's because people form party tribe groups. So in religion, it's religious groups. You know, you're of that religion, that's the evil religion, no, you're the evil religion, back and forth. And it becomes difficult to talk to people who have that tribal mentality. They don't think logically, they don't think rationally, they don't use reason. It's all based upon, I'm in this group, tribe, religion, party, whatever, and so everybody else is wrong. That's stupid. You know, if you're Democrat, you're stupid. If you're Republican, you're stupid. If you're Mormon, you're stupid. If you're Christian, you're stupid. Cut it out. The concept, and you know, in government, people talk about this. Oh, we're talking about the issues. No, you're not. You're talking about your party platform. Quit trying to fool people. It's not about issues. It's issues for the people affected. You know, like Flint, Michigan. They want pure water to drink from. But the Democrat Party, they want diversity in government to empathize with the people in Flint. And Republicans, we're the governing body, you need to follow our orders. You're a national threat if you complain. See, party government does not explain anything, does not solve anything. So what do you do then with international relations? A president can't just go into the Middle East, or a representative such as, you know, Jared Kushner, and say, hey, okay, we're the United States, we're morally superior than all of you here, and we're going to establish Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. And and so, Palestine, you're screwed. Get over it. Are you having protesters 100 miles away? Well, we're gonna shoot you. Yeah, that's what they did on May 15th of this year. Protesters were protesting Trump's establishment of Israel becoming the capital, and they were without weapons. They were 100 feet away, so they posed no threat. They weren't storming the wall, and they were still shot at. So, great day in Israeli history. A president, if he's going to go in to a situation, he can't go with his understanding of things. He can't go in with America's understanding of things. He's got to understand and study up on the thinking of both Palestinians and Israelis. Palestinians have been living there for since the Muslim invasion, and Israelis who are of Jewish descent. I remember watching in the UN the Israeli leader, representative, showing a coin that archaeologists had dug up, and it showed that Jews had been there before the Muslim invasion. Well, first of all, that was an incorrect premise to utilize, although he had a point that Jews were there before Palestinians. However, Jews claim Israel as theirs, or at least Jerusalem, because of the way the Torah was written. Unfortunately, despite the massive archaeological expeditions in Israel, the Jews have not found the evidence for the existence of King David and King Solomon. They find the House of David in later archaeological finds, but that doesn't date to King David himself. It's much later. And so it doesn't prove that King David existed. The House of David is a different concept in Hebrew. So where does it originate to? As far as we can figure, the oldest records are just prior to the Assyrian capture of northern Israel. That's it. And that's around 1000 BC. And so Jews cannot claim Jerusalem as their capital. Jerusalem in the archaeological record has never been an independent kingdom, as is suggested from the Jewish Bible. Jerusalem was always a tributary kingdom. They had to give tribute originally to Egypt. Egypt had been in control of that land. The last known control was with the 19th dynasty, although under Akhenaten in the 18th dynasty, he gave up concerning himself with obtaining tribute from the Canaan area. And thus the problems that Ramses II had to do campaigns to reestablish tribute. Yes, there's the Merneptah Stela, but it goes back to I think Seti the First had it in his tomb, and it was just unfinished. But Merneptah was the one who finished it. And so it wasn't Merneptah that did the campaign where the people of Israel were found. But it still confuses things as to what really happened in that event. And so, again, if you're utilizing your Christian beliefs on archaeological discoveries, you're going to be way off on your understanding of the evidence that is found at the dig. And so establishing peace in Israel is something simple by simply saying, I'm sorry, but you guys aren't the first ones in Israel. Neither of you are. So therefore, you both have to live in peace. If you can't live together in peace, then we're going to have to do some kind of punishment. But in religion, which, you know, the Middle East also is involving religion, and that makes it even more complicated. In our day, we have the continuation of people who think that they are of a higher status than they actually are. In most cases, such people are of low stature who are struggling in life, are not well liked, and then they think they've obtained information from Scripture, whichever religion they're a part of, that somehow triggers something in their brain, and all of a sudden they think they're the chosen one. and communication with such a person is very difficult with religion. In politics, it's just a matter of saying, hey, you're using your party's platform rather than thinking outside the box at the individual issue at hand. However, in religion, Constantine destroyed religion permanently for everybody throughout all the rest of history, because what he did was establish a God, create a God that was supernatural, that therefore could not be understood or discovered or experienced in the physical reality. And that allowed people to justify having faith without ever obtaining a knowledge. And in our day, we've seen faith turned into knowledge. The Mormons, for example, President Oaks, first counselor in the church's presidency, got up in October conference that they have here in Utah and announced spiritual truths are better than scientific truths. So that's the extreme danger that we're looking at with religious fanaticism, where unprovable information is considered factual and evidence-based. And that's extremely dangerous, trying to communicate with such a person. I had a guy who thought he was Jesus, and he was mixing reincarnation with resurrection and I guess a Jewish Messiah as well, because Jews believe that the last days Messiah will be a full human, full mortal, not half God, half man. And so he believed he was all three of those rolled up into one, and he called himself Jesus. And so I talked to him about it, and he would say that, oh, well, I had an experience like Paul, so therefore I'm Jesus. And you try to tell them the story of Paul. Paul never became the replacement for Jesus. Paul was just an apostle. He never made it into the 12 apostles. And then he responds back by saying, oh, Paul was the 13th apostle. No! Romans 16. And, you know, you shut him down on those types of facts, but he wouldn't give up the core belief that he had, that he was Jesus. And I was, able to just show that he was contradicting himself, that he'd quote passages of Scripture, and then I would point to another Scripture that trumped the Scripture that he was thinking was supporting his position. And then because he couldn't beat me on Scripture discussion, he then came after me on worldly philosophies of men. And but in the end, he couldn't win on that either, so what he did was fall back to the Constantinian creation of a supernatural being that can communicate to only the chosen who listen. And he was the chosen, and therefore I was not, and that's why I'm not seeing him as Jesus. I tried to tell him the man-child, which he thought was Jesus, and so yeah, he was stepping on a turf that I knew all about. If you are aware of my video series that has so far 10 videos in that series that are an hour long each. So my knowledge on the last days Messiah, the second coming of Christ, the man-child, the one mighty and strong, depending on your religion, they're all the same person. It's just every religion understands him differently. And so I have a vast knowledge of far beyond any of the particular religions themselves, because I've been able to identify them in each religious culture. And so this Jesus character was, saying, well, God's word is only for those who listen, and I therefore am Jesus, and I even tried to show, if you're Jesus and nobody else can interpret your word, how then are you able to have communication with us mere mortals? And he doesn't respond. He can't answer that question. And so he has to resort to other tactics to distract from the issue at hand, that he is not Jesus. He did not fulfill any of the prophecies of any of the religions, and he has produced no works whatsoever. He just says, yeah, I'm Jesus, it's me. I haven't done anything about it. The time will come, and it'll be in the future, and blah, blah, blah. Just like, yeah, whatever. And he wouldn't relent. He kept pushing and pushing and pushing on me. I'm Jesus, you must believe, otherwise you're wrong. And you can't communicate with such a person. They do not understand logic. They cannot reason. And that's why religion is so dangerous to society, is because when you have people who believe without ever finding out truth in the physical reality, you create dumbness. The Dark Ages, that was religion caused. They lost the understanding of plumbing, shipping, other technologies that were had before them. And, reading of books were for an elite group of people. The common people became illiterate, and they had to trust whatever their pastor told them to believe in. That's why the invention of the print press was a tremendous revelation, because people now could read for themselves and compare with what their pastor was saying, and thus we now have thousands of Christian breakoffs from the Catholic Church. Even the Catholic Church itself has Russian Orthodox, Greek Orthodox, Eastern Orthodox, Western Orthodox, etc. So when people were able to finally gain intelligence again, pulling themselves out of the Dark Ages, they created their own religion. They recognized that the original religion of the Holy Roman Empire of Constantine was wrong, and they left. And unfortunately, many died because the Catholic, Holy Roman Catholics were not too happy about people leaving. And so you have the Spanish Inquisition, for example. So, yeah, a lot of bad stuff. And even with Mormons. I was born and raised in Mormonism. I know the Mormon doctrines. I know the Mormon theologies. I know the Mormon rituals. I know them inside and out. I know them better than Mormons know. And that's the problem. Is because when I did the research on church history for the Mormons, I realized how it explained the questions that I had all through my growing up years, the contradictions within the church. And so yeah, I realized that Brigham Young was a horrible, evil man, just beyond Ted Bundy, Marilyn Manson, Jim Jones. He was a horrible, evil man. And Mormons yet think he's, a prophet of God. That's how evil he was, to be able to fool so many people, despite murdering people along the way. That's just horrifying to me, that people could fall for such a person. And so yeah, I want nothing to do with the Mormon Church now. And yet trying to communicate to Mormons this, Mormons are so entrenched into the brainwashing of their church leaders that anything on the outside, the internet, people who are critical of the church are seen as demons, devils, inspired by Lucifer himself to try to tear down the church. And they don't get that they are run by Lucifer in the spiritual understanding, and that Lucifer is purposely denying them access to true knowledge in order to preserve his control over them. And Mormons don't understand this concept. And that's what corrupt religions do, is they utilize the tactics of their antagonist in their religion and claim that it's the true God who's the protagonist in their religion that is leading and guiding their church. And so Mormons are fooled by this big time, because it's an intricate theology in the Mormon Church, with a pre-existent life where there's a whole bunch of interaction going on up there to explain mortality and the interactions here, and to explain the afterlife. And yeah, Mormons are just, wow, it's just shocking. The mentality of Mormons, who are unable to discern between their antagonists' doctrinal principles and their protagonist doctrinal principles, and how their leaders are following the antagonist rather than the protagonist, even though they outwardly proclaim they are for the protagonist and that the protagonist is leading them. If you don't understand antagonist and protagonist, come on. It's about Jesus and Lucifer. But yeah, Mormons have now adopted the Christian concept of faith as truth, as I illustrated with President Oaks. And as a result, you have a misunderstanding of the brainwashed conditions among the members, now mixed with the Christian understanding of believe whatever you want after we've already told you what you're supposed to believe, and nobody can touch your beliefs now. You are safe from the world. We have given you the shield of faith, and you can now fight the adversary. And it's just a nightmare in the Mormon Church. And I have the danger alert video. If you go to my channel, look up the videos. It's the one I did last night, so it's the one previous to this one. I can't figure out how to get through to Mormons now. I mean, they're my own people, to put it that way. Although I was raised outside of Utah, and so coming into Utah, I realized there is a different religion in Utah than there is outside of Utah. But I still, having lived here since 1996, it's when I moved here after I graduated from the university in Canada. The Mormons here are just so fanatical from every facet of life, and it shows in the culture here and in the government here. The laws that the government makes are based upon the religious beliefs of the Mormon Church. So yeah, it was a surprise that medical marijuana passed. That shows you how much the church is waking up people to the reality of the evil of the church. That enough people said, no, we want to help those who are having medical issues. We do not want the church denying healing to them. You know, and as a religion that professes to have healing powers, and they're denying a medical treatment that would help heal people, that goes beyond hypocrisy. So it's just so dangerous with religion. You know, it's safer with politics. Unfortunately, religion under the Trump administration has emerged as the dominant political party and has taken it over. And that I don't think the founding fathers anticipated with the Bill of Rights, with the First Amendment, the freedom of religion. I don't think they understood the dangers of that. They were, I think, hoping that if you have a variety of religions, that you wouldn't have a majority with one particular religion. Unfortunately, there are religious monopolies, even though there are numerous religions. Evangelicals are a monopoly on the populations, and they chose to vote Republican. And so that's a dangerous thing for our nation. And we're seeing the fruits of that. And the fruits are bad and spoiled and rotten. And it's causing destruction on our land. Evangelicals, their religion. You're religious, right? You believe in the Bible, right? So you believe in the book of Revelations, right? You know, I know you do because I see the YouTube videos of evangelicals who do the signs in the heaven as you believe, and correspond it with Daniel, and say, oh, this sign now means that we have 70 days until the sign from Daniel, and blah, blah. So I know that evangelicals are in on this. And so why then are you voting for Trump? Why are you voting Republican? What is Trump doing? He wants a wall. And people say, oh, it's to keep people in. Well, yeah, so that we don't escape. It's a prison. But yet it's also to keep people out. What is supposed to happen in the last days? Gathering of the house of Israel? How can our nation gather the house of Israel if we're keeping people out? You know, it should be logical for Christians to understand this concept, that Trump is bad, just from that alone, because I'm using your understanding from your scriptural text, and yet you're clueless. And yes, it goes the same for Mormons. Mormons should know better. They have the Family Proclamation. Families can be together forever. And yet, go to the Deseret News. Look at the comments about the 1 or 2 articles that discuss the border crisis. You will find Mormon comment after Mormon comment after Mormon comment of, those people brought it upon themselves. They deserve to be kicked out. They deserve what they get for being illegal. There is such Mormon hatred towards the family unit. There was last year a rise in domestic violence cases in Utah. Family violence in Utah among Mormons. And yet Mormons claim the Family Proclamation as inspired by God. The Family Proclamation, by the way, was used against me because I wasn't providing my young family with an instant house with a room for each of our 2 kids and the 3rd coming on the way, with a car for me and the wife, and all of the furnishings, all right in the beginning after I just barely graduated. Because the Family Proclamation says the husband has responsibility for taking care of the family. And so Mormons twist that to say, oh, well, he has to be rich to give his wife whatever she needs and wants. No, that's not what it says, people. Read it again. If the man can't take care of his family, but he's got a full-time job, it's not his fault. It's the fault of the business he's working for. It's a fault of the economy and the business system. It is a fault of the government who allows that economic system. Learn to focus on the cause, not the side effects. But we've allowed psychiatry to dominate our nation, and especially in Utah, because psychiatrists do not treat causes. They have no clue as to what causes mental illness, as they call it. So they don't know the cause of Alzheimer's or schizophrenia, as they call it, which is a fake disease created by the Russians, or autism, which has a huge rise in Utah, and I'm sort of questioning that, but yeah, it comes from psychiatry, who have influenced our culture into thinking that side effects must be controlled rather than treating a cause, searching for the causal problem. And that's where you get Utahns blaming the poor, the homeless, for their situation, not going to the cause, which is the government, who protects the business leaders who are oppressing their employees and customers. That's why the cost of living is so high and wages are so low. Oh, but as long as the businesses are thriving on the stock market. Again, that's a distractionary trap. You know, who cares if businesses make a profit? If the people are suffering, are having trouble buying bread, taking care of a family, you're not in an economically prosperous nation. So, yeah, that's the dangers we face with trying to convince people of truth, because those in control of government, of religion, they're destroying our nation. They're the cause. And it's sad when you can't convince somebody of the causal factor, that they have their own beliefs based on what they're being brainwashed to believe. And you can't communicate with a religious person specifically to tell them, you know, hey, if you can't physically experience it, it's not real. Because, you know, you even try to use natural metaphors to help communicate with them. You know, say you were given a seed for an apple tree. What happens if you don't plant it? You never get the apples from the seed. You have to plant the seed in order to get the apples. That's with all knowledge that you are given. If you do not replicate that knowledge into the physical realm, you will never benefit from it. If you get an inspiration for some product, if you just live your life saying, yeah, I had this inspiration back in 1952, it's the greatest one ever. Well, where is it? What is it? How does it work? Oh, it's the greatest. It works so well. It's the hugest, bestest thing ever. Well, where is it? How do I see how it works? I might want it. Well, I haven't made it, but I had it in my head. It's all right in here. See, it does no good. Ideas, beliefs, opinions, feelings, they're no good to anybody. You have to replicate it. Or in the case of people expressing their feelings, you need to provide the evidence. You can't just say, well, I'm scared to walk home at night. Well, why? Is there a threat, or are you creating a threat? Give us the evidence. You know, that man right there wearing the trench coat and the hoodie, you know, and a bulge in his pocket, it looks like a gun. So you gotta have evidence. And if you don't have the evidence, your feelings, your opinions, your beliefs, your faith are in vain. They are worthless. Just like the fig tree that Jesus destroyed. It produced no fruit, so it was good for nothing. A fig seed is worthless if you don't plant it, and if there are no fruit from it, it's worthless too. But that's why religions created this. That's why Constantine created the supernatural being, so that nobody could ever find out the truth that he was a fraud. And Christianity ran with it, and Mormonism is now adapting it to them. And the proof is obvious. They have no fruit because they haven't planted the seed. But the religions don't see it that way. They don't recognize, hey, we don't have fruit. We're the true church of Jesus. That's what I was telling that Jesus guy. You know, you have no fruit. You haven't done anything that was prophesied for you to do. And so, well, because I listen to my father. Oh, man. You can't communicate with people who refuse to do that, and they're just dying inside. That's all it is. They're living their life. It's amazing how long people can last with incorrect thinking. You know, if it had to do with actual food production, people would know instantly, hey, my beliefs are wrong. I actually need to plant this seed. And I better hurry because I'm starving. You know, it's too late. If you're already starving and you haven't planted the seed, but it works differently with the thinking processes. People are given a lot of lenience. And yet people in our day are abusing that. And we're headed into a dark ages if we're not already there. Because technology, you may think it's great, but we should be a lot better. But the economy will not allow it. We can't have products that last us a lifetime because businesses don't make a profit off of it. You know, if we had for example, toilet paper that we could reuse for the rest of our life, which sounds gross because of the concept, but work with me here. What do you do with, as a toilet paper company, if everybody has bought your toilet paper and nobody's buying it ever again? You're not making any money. So what do? You have to make a toilet paper that people keep coming back to buy. So with transportation, that's why your car keeps breaking down. That's why they make it so difficult that you have to hire a mechanic to fix your car, to buy your parts. With your appliances, that's why they break down. It's because they want money coming in on a regular cash flow basis. Doctors, that's why they're not curing. They're supposed to do no harm, but when they choose not to cure, they are doing harm. But they're trying to get away with not following their Hippocratic oath. They need money. They're not going to make money if everybody's cured. That's why, I hate to say this, but that's why diseases are rampant. They cause the problems so that they can then come out and say, hey, we've got the remedy. Not the cure, because we want money, but we have a remedy. And so all these all these advertisements saying, donate to our foundation for cancer research, because we're going to end cancer. We have the power. You know, I'm strong. I will resist. They're not going to cure cancer no matter how much money you give them. They can't do that because then you stop giving them money. They're in business to make money, not to actually provide you with a cure. It's all a trap, people. It's all a scam. And we're not supposed to give to donations to anything. Our economic system is such that the government is supposed to regulate the economy so that we don't have to pay taxes, we don't have to give to donations to charities or other kind of medical groups that do things. The mere fact that the government refuses to do their job and forces organizations to beg for money from the populace. It's pathetic. You know, now it's Christmas time, and yet again, everybody's begging for money. And the homeless are not our problem. So when these organizations make you feel guilty, you know, showing the abused puppies in cages, or the starving children in Africa, or the homeless on the streets, that is not our fault. Remember that. They are trying to make you feel guilty so that you give them money. It is not our job to help the world. That's what we have a government for. And the fact that our government is not doing it, passing it off onto others to do it, that's the crisis. So yes, it would be nice to help other people, but it's not our job to help them because of the system we have. And we can do better. We just have to do away with money. So, yeah, this is taking longer than I intended, but I hope you understand. You can't communicate with people, especially religious-minded people, who utilize irrationality as their argument. The concept of not producing physical evidence. Just saying, believe whatever I say. I'm your leader, you have to believe me. All we have to do is replicate what they're asking us to do, and we find out that, hey, wait, this is wrong. But then you have the Mormon Church who says, no, we do not like intellectuals. We don't want you proving anything, so we're taking away Sunday school now, so that you will no longer study the scriptures for yourselves. You will have to trust whatever the leaders tell you. Yes, Mormons, it's getting that bad. So run away. I was going to look for that yesterday and I didn't. I'll do it now.